Must be injured.
Need to confess. Need to confess. Need to confess. Need to confess.
It's Andy Campbell! It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero! A superhero! Breakthrough! It's taken a while, but it's been worth the wait for Cardiff City!
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Show, episode number 57 today, and it is the day of Cardiff versus Fulham, so I will have one eye on that. But of course, A.C.E Podcast Nation is also the home to many other shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysis and more, so please follow us on social media. Get your information, the links and everything are below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, of course. And of course, you can also follow the show's official Twitter, Instagram and Facebook page at A.C.E Footy Show everywhere. Big shout out and a thanks to Black Diamond Sports for all their help with the show and help us preparing and all that sort of stuff. They're a global sports agency representing sports stars around the world. For more information, visit their social media pages. The links for that are in the description and in the closing credits. And of course, thanks to Darren Ralston for sponsoring the show, Bespoke Financial. And here's a quick word from them as well.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
Right, I've got my teeth in now so I can actually speak. Unbelievable. I don't know what was going on then, but I apologise profusely.
Good word.
Well, that's just proving that they were in. Bespoke Financial, they thank you for them to sponsoring the show, of course, and they specialise in life insurance, critical illness, income protection, mortgages, and of course, sports cover. Joining me this evening to talk the latest football news, as well as our guest's career and much more. First of all, we have my usual co-host, partner in crime, the goal collector, David Jones' favourite son, Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm excellent, mate. Yeah. Obviously, I want to take this opportunity to dedicate, obviously, the show to Liam Davies, who obviously lost his life on Friday. Obviously, I was really upset last night when I found out because I'd done a birthday wish to Liam for his birthday in April during lockdown, and his sister Abby got in touch with me and she obviously told me the news yesterday. So I was devastated for her and the family, and obviously Liam himself, and just hope that Cardiff can do him proud today, because obviously he was a huge Cardiff fan. I think Morrison's his favourite player for all the pictures what I've seen. So obviously I told her that we'd want to dedicate the show today to It's obviously Liam's life, so I'm just really, really proud to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I second that. Absolutely. Straight away, Weston's in with a comment. He says, David's hair is better than Andy Campbell's.
It's ruthless, this, by the way. It's ruthless. Bear in mind, Reece. He's just admitted that he's just done it early before he came on the show. So I haven't.
All right,
man's a grower. So.
So, as you can see, tonight's guest, he started his professional career at Bristol City before moving to Wigan, Sheffield United, Swansea City, Barnsley, Doncaster, Birmingham, Indian Super League side ATK, Barrytown United, and of course a former Welsh international who made over 400 career appearances, scoring 51 goals. Cardiff born, Mr. David Cotterill. How are you, mate?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure, mate. Really pleased that you come on, mate. So, Cardiff born. Does that mean you're a Cardiff fan, David? Just to put that one to bed early doors.
You know what? I get asked this question all the time. I was linked with Cardiff right throughout my career on a few occasions, and I did want to play for Cardiff, so it was never about, I dislike Cardiff, that's why I signed for Swansea, this and that. I always wanted Cardiff to do well. So, yeah, I'm a Man United fan because my middle name's George Best. No wonder I was a fucking alcoholic. So, yeah, I was a United fan growing up. But I did used to go, my dad would take me to go and see the City games, yeah.
Right, okay.
There we go. Right, we'll get into that now. I'm gonna get into that. But as everyone knows, we like to start the show, fire 7 quick fire questions at you, and just so the viewers can get to know you and your tastes.
There we go.
So you just say the first thing which comes to mind, really. One of them's a bit tricky, I gotta say. It's kind of putting you on the spot a bit, but start as we mean to go on. So, David Cotterill, Magnificent Seven. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Cardiff or Swansea?
Oof.
Oh, that's a horrible one.
Do you know what? Right, that's disgusting. What a start to the show that is. That should have been question number 1, by the way. We could have finished on it.
Yeah, we could have finished it and ended the call.
Oh God.
I'll have to go Cardiff because I'm from Cardiff, but I play for Swansea, so I'll have to sit on the fence. I want them to both do well. We'll just go with that.
Fair play. Great comeback that, by the way. I'll give you that one. Yeah, I like that.
My work is done.
Yeah.
Favourite TV show?
Do you want my all-time favourite one?
Yeah.
Probably Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, I like that.
Excellent choice.
Good answer.
My kids watch that now, so I get to watch it all over again.
Old school, isn't it? Old school. Yeah,
it's proper
classic. Yeah.
Angriest teammate?
Probably I'd have to go with Craig Bellamy, I think.
Yeah, that seems about right. Best roommate?
Best roommate. I had a room by myself quite a lot, but probably towards the back end of my career with Birmingham, I was with Michael Morrison, who was a good roommate of mine. He's at Reading now, the centre back.
Yeah, good lad as well. Yeah.
Ryan Giggs or Gareth Bale?
Bale.
Oof.
Shut. Didn't even think about it.
No hesitation there. No hesitation.
Straight in.
No messing. And finally, you can answer with me if you want. The greatest Welshman who's ever lived.
I think Tom Jones for me.
That's a great
cracking answer. That's a cracking answer, isn't it?
Great answer. What a recovery after that second question. I got superb.
You thrown an absolute grenade on me in the first 5-10 minutes of the call.
I just can't believe. So talk me through it then. So tell me why that wasn't question number 1.
Well, I didn't want to, scare him off. You've got to ease in with Ronaldo or Messi.
All right.
And then it's like...
Fair one.
So he just thinks it's nice, easy call. Yeah, just talk a bit about football and then bang, straight in.
Get his friendship up and then all of a sudden bang him with a question.
Make him feel comfortable.
Perfection.
Whip the rug out from under his feet.
Perfection.
It's what a proper journalist does, anyway. Something like that, I suppose. Professional, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And let me give you credit there, Dave. You handled that really well. So
Indeed.
great answer.
Absolutely.
Fantastic answer.
Could have gone badly wrong and just batted it off
Yeah.
with a straight bat. Easy goes. So what we do, David, before we kind of go into your career and stuff like that, is we pick a few stories from the week and just talk about football generally. Obviously, with the Championship and the Premier League season finishing, first of all, we're going to talk about the teams which finished in the top 4 in the Premier League, and just talk about their seasons, how we think they did. So we'll start with the champions, Liverpool.
Yeah.
How do you think they did?
I think they were amazing. I think they deserved winners of the Premier League. They were very consistent. They show that on the world stage as well when the pressure up is against them. And I think, if lockdown didn't happen, I think they would have probably, been in full flow then. I don't think that helped them with the flow of things when they came back. But I think, they're deservingly winners. I think they showed how good they've been, and they were the best team in the league by far last season.
Yeah, they were the most consistent for sure. I was desperately petitioning to have the league cancelled throughout lockdown, but it didn't happen. Andy, what did you think about Liverpool? They were the consistency for me, I think.
Yeah, I think it's key. I think that the times that Liverpool have let themselves down has always been against the lesser sides, and this year they had the consistency against the lesser teams, and they were ruthless against them as well. Where I think years ago, I'll use when Brendan Rodgers was the manager, 3-0 up or 3-1 up, and they draw 3-3. That never happened this season because they've just got something. They've got something else. And listen, I'm going to probably put it out. I'm not going to put it out there. I'm not going to sit on the fence. For me, the teams that didn't win the league for Liverpool were probably a stronger side than what Liverpool have got now. The Suarez, the Stevie G's. That I look back at certain groups of players and Stevie G's just a prime example that how he hasn't won the Premier League is beyond me. That he deserved it more than anybody. And then you look at Jordan Henderson, and for me, they're not in the same league, but he's won the Champions League and he's won the Premier League, and he obviously could win more and more coming up. So, fair play to them. They've had a fantastic season, but they're going forward, they're excellent. And for me, the fullbacks make them tick. Trent on one side, you've got Robinson on the other, and when you've got fullbacks playing like wingers, you've got an opportunity to bomb on teams and really overpower them. And I think that's what they've done for a majority of the season.
I think they bought well. They bought well, didn't they? The spine of their team with Alisson and Van Dijk, where they didn't have that before. They were always lacking, world class centre back, and the goalkeeper's situation. They didn't sort that out for a long period of time. I think that cost them when Suarez and Stevie G was there. But I think they're definitely by far a stronger squad now than when Gerrard and Suarez was there.
Yeah, well, you've just said there, mate, haven't you, for me, about certain positions. Obviously the goalkeeper makes a huge part of making everyone feel comfortable. The spine of the team, that Virgil van Dijk, to bring in somebody of his class and bring a goalkeeper of Alisson's class, how can you fail? That the spine of your team is sorted out. You've got your Jordan Henderson. Imagine if you could throw a Stevie G in that mix as well. It'd just be unstoppable. And Man City and other teams are going to have to spend big in the summer in order to close the gap, because obviously Man City are losing David Silva and obviously the questions over certain other players, but they've got an opportunity to close the gap, but it's going to cost them. And I look at Tottenham miles away, even Man United. That just the inconsistency of sides, and I know Si won't like me for saying that, but consistency is key, and it's not about beating Liverpool once. It's about winning the other 37 games.
Yeah.
The thing is with Liverpool as well is they haven't really got one superstar. They've just got a squad of very, very good players. There's no one player where you think, oh wow, he's unbelievable, like a Suarez or a Gerrard or a Coutinho or someone who they've had previously. I think they've got a more overall squad, arguably, than if you look at Man City, they got De Bruyne and a couple of others, and you got Pogba or Fernandes, and the United, Chelsea, the same. But with Liverpool, it just seems like a more rounded and balanced squad. I think they've got the most balanced team out of any of the sides in the top 4, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
So Man City finished second. What went wrong for them this year, do you think, David?
I I think, a couple of key positions, they had injuries at the wrong time. They just didn't really. I don't think they got the pairing right with the centre backs. I think they lacked there with the injuries, and I think that kind of cost them in the end. And again, with games they were going into, they were winning the previous seasons comfortably. They were slipping up, and they didn't have that last season. But I think since coming back from the lockdown, the way they've played is you can just sense that the philosophy was just instilled in them right through off. I think they've come back and they've looked really, really good. Me personally, I fancy Man City to win the league next year. I think De Bruyne is just by far the best player in the league.
Do you think it's helped them, David, with obviously the European ban being lifted? Obviously, would that have had an impact on keeping the best players?
I think so, yeah, because you want to play in the Champions League. All the best players of the big clubs, they want to play in the Champions League week in, week out. So I think that does have a massive boost for them, and they'll obviously keep attracting the big names because most players will be looking to come to the Premier League. They want to play for Man City.
I think one thing that I think that Man City have struggled with a little bit, and it's Aguero, that he hasn't played as much as he has done in previous years, and I don't know if that's fitness, if that's age, or if that's just the manager going down a different route of going a lot more pace in the side with having Gabriel Jesus and Sterling, etc. But do they need a number 9, someone who can lead the line and have runners off them?
Yeah, I think so. I think Jesus is is a great player as well. But I think, obviously replacing Aguero, players like him are hard to come by. So when they don't play, you realise, what you're missing. And he would decide games at the last seconds or any given moment where you have a tight game, bang, you're just put in the top corner. And that's what separates the difference. Yeah. Where I think where he has been injured, and it again with key positions, centre-back and then Aguero, that does then, end up costing you for the league titles. It's just small little percentages that you miss out on.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Third was Manchester United. I think if you'd given Man United fans third position at the start of the league, at the start of the season, they'd have probably snapped your hands off. I got to be honest, I think if they didn't sign Fernandes in January, I don't think they're anywhere near the top 4. But maybe I'm being a bit harsh. They got a very young squad.
He's made a huge
big achievement for Solskjaer and Jacqueline to get to third.
Oh, massive, yeah. I think it's a huge achievement, but I also feel sorry for Leicester City as well, though, because I think with the run they were on before lockdown, they're probably the team, along with probably Sheffield Utd and Wolves, who've been hit the most by what happened, because I don't think nobody would have caught them because they were playing well, they were in form, the good players were coming to the table, they didn't have any injuries like other teams had. You know what I mean? So other teams have been able to regroup, and I do feel sorry for them. But Man United, obviously, they won the game yesterday, which got 4th place, and probably deserved it yesterday. I thought they did a professional job and did enough to beat I'd probably say struggling Leicester City on the day yesterday.
Yeah, I think so. David, what did you think? Did you think Solskjaer's done a good job so far?
Yeah, I think he's been given a longer period of time to implement his philosophy and how he wants the players to play a certain way, and I think he's been given the time, and they've also brought the right youth coming through. Like Greenwood's is literally on fire, isn't he? Really, he's like a very exciting player, and he proves that he's a natural goal scorer, which is he's just hit the ground running as soon as he comes to the first team. You got Rashford, Martial, the front three are a proper threat. The only thing that disappointed me is that when they had the chance to get to the final of the FA Cup, they then rested a few players with obviously one eye on the Champions League. And I just thought, well, you've just come back from lockdown. Is a game or two is not going to hurt extra. So from that point, I thought you should just go on for it because, at the end of it on your CV, it's not going to say, well, you made Champions League football in 3rd position. But then you go on your CV, you won a cup. So I think they should maybe try to win a cup and back themselves to make the top 4.
I totally agree. I think as well the way the game panned out, and the way obviously the game before panned out with Man City getting beat by Arsenal, for me it would have been a no-brainer to change tactics or change things last minute, and as a manager just say, right, listen, change your plan. We're going this way. You know what I mean? The big hitters are in. It's Man United's only real opportunity. They are playing in the Europa League, aren't they? Still, is that right? Am I right? Right with that? So obviously they've still got an opportunity to win something this season. But for me, that was a perfect opportunity. A semi-final against a young Chelsea side, inexperienced in those kind of situations, and for me, they played into Frank's hands. And when Frank must have seen the team sheet, he must have been just delirious about what he's seen in front of him, and it must have given the Chelsea players a real boost to see what was in front of them, because Man City were really out of the depth.
Yeah, because United were on fire as well, weren't they? They had great rhythm. They were playing really well. They were exciting. They're now exciting again to watch. Whereas before, I used to watch them under Mourinho, and it's just boring. Whereas now you think that they can hit people on the counter attack, and they just come punish you like they could back in the day, with Rooney and Ronaldo when they used to break. So they're getting a lot better and exciting to watch. I feel that they do need to add to the squad then, just to kick them on again for the next season, because if you have injuries to a couple of those players, they're nowhere near as strong as the others.
I totally agree, and you just you hit the point on the head there about resting players and players having enough time off, and I think, listen, you know what I mean, that surely the players weren't physically and mentally tired enough to play in a semi-final. If you're going to rest them in the league game, because you know what I mean, it was always going to go down to the last game of the season. Before that, you know what I mean, you could work it out, and you know what I mean, they could have had to go, instead of not having to lose this last game of the season against Leicester, they would have had to win it if they hadn't won the last game previously. So for me, I think he's got his ideas and his team selection all wrong, and would it have been different if supporters had been there? You reckon? Would you pick the different team?
I don't think he would have. No, I think the eyes and the prize were basically on the Champions League football, because the Champions League, getting into Europe now, it's worth so much to the football clubs, and it attracts all the best players. So the argument would be, well, you're going to attract more players making Champions League football rather than missing out and winning the FA Cup. So from that point of view, he's probably thinking, well, it's paid off.
The thing is, for me, they don't sign Jadon Sancho if they don't get to the Champions League. Pogba probably leaves. Whereas I know people slag Pogba off, but for me, I feel quite sorry for him, because until Fernandes come, he hasn't really had any midfield players around him who are any good. So unless he does something special, he's very isolated a lot. So I'd quite like to see what he can do with two good midfielders alongside him. Whether that happens,
I love Pogba. I love him.
I do as well.
Does it annoy you though, David, when you hear the criticism he gets? Because listen, the fella's won numerous titles. He's won the World Cup. So how can this man be a bad footballer if he's won all them kind of things?
I know, it's crazy. Well, people just they have their opinions and they're entitled to them. I think because he's so good and he has that laid back approach, it kind of comes across as like an arrogant way, or he doesn't care. But look, you don't get to the top and you don't win the many titles unless you care. So he's proved himself over and over again. At the World Cup, I thought he was unbelievable, and he's gone obviously and won it with France. I just think that maybe sometimes on the consistency basis, where sometimes in the big games you want him to turn up and he goes missing a couple of times. But again, if you've got no one around you supporting you in that way, you can't do it on your own. So, but for me, I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think good players, you know what I mean, can't do it on their own. You know what I mean? You named Aguero and you named De Bruyne, and yes, they're world-class footballers, but they've got to have players around them. They can't do it on their own. And I go back to Stevie G point. Stevie G was world-class, but because he didn't have the kind of players what Liverpool have got now around him, that's where they'll let themselves down at times. And you know what I mean? It's such a fine line between world success and just having some slight success.
Yeah, it is
100%. What do we think about Chelsea's season with a very, very young squad, a very young manager, really coming in for only his second job, to get fourth place? I think when you look where Leicester were, I think Chelsea I think they had, again, given that at the start of the season, they'd probably take it. What do you reckon, Ant?
I think we spoke about it quite freely on the show that obviously he left Derby County last year, and I think nobody expected him to have the success that he had. You know, he's obviously gone to a huge club from where he was at Derby. He hasn't really invested. He's brought in a couple of younger players who he had on loan at Derby. He's Mason Mount for one. He's obviously played Tammy Abraham a lot more. I think he's played scored 15 or 16 goals. Listen, he's slowly growing into a very good manager, and something that Chelsea can obviously work with going on in the future. And will Frank be dangerous with money? Potentially will be, because he's got his ideas. Obviously, they've signed a couple of players, Werner for one, and they've obviously signed a lad from Ajax as well on a free transfer. So they could be dangerous next year. They could. I think they'll be a little bit better than they were this year. I think they'll be more expansive. They'll be a lot more attacking. And I think it'll be a really interesting thing to see. But also with buying players brings a little bit of pressure as well. So if he doesn't succeed, he could be under a little bit of pressure as well.
What's quite interesting is Lampard and Solskjaer both seem to have quite a similar ideology in terms of who they want to sign. They both seem to want to sign very young players who they can, potentially sell on in the future, but also like a British core. Johnny Wish just said in the comments there, Mason Mount's been one of the best in the league. I don't know if I'd say he's been one of the best in the league, but I think he's been outstanding for such a young guy to really push on in his first full season, really, in the Premier League.
No, he's technically excellent as well. Technically
superb.
Yeah, he did. He had a very good game yesterday. I thought that his assists yesterday, and I thought he scored as well. I think didn't he score the first goal? I think he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, it's free kick, wasn't it? Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of they had the transfer ban and they've gone in there, got to an FA Cup final and they made the top four. I think he's done a very good job.
Yeah, totally agree.
Couldn't have expected much more, I don't think.
No.
So moving to the other end of the table, I'm going to have a little bit of a rant here because Aston Villa stayed up, but in the
I know where this is coming.
First or second game after lockdown.
First game.
The VAR. It was the first game, wasn't it? It was the first game.
First ever game.
Of all the games. After the restart, there was a goal. The game finished 0-0. It was a goal, and the goal line technology.
Still nil side. Don't worry.
And my stream is probably like 5 minutes behind it as well. So the other team had a goal disallowed because the goal line technology didn't work. Now, to me, I said at the time, you can't have that. You may as well bin it. But now that goal has meant that Villa stayed up, because that point, if they'd lost that game 1-0, they would have gone down, and not Watford. Who was the other team which went down? Bournemouth would have stayed up.
Listen,
now,
Paul Merson did an interview on it yesterday on Soccer Saturday, and he was bang on, and it just doesn't sit right. He's an ex-Villa player, but you've obviously got to play by the rules. And why in that game didn't the referee, even a minute later on, just stop the game and just say, listen, there's been a goal, you know what I mean? We've got to stop the game. It's a goal. A goal's a goal. You know what I mean? Can't wait till half time and then go, my watch wasn't working. Oh, hang on a minute. It's just buzzed and said it's 1-0. It's laughable. You know what I mean? The VAR are there for a reason. They're there to pick up on things that the linesmen and people don't see. Forget goal line technology. It's irrelevant when you've got somebody watching a game in a studio. It's absolutely irrelevant. You know what I mean? For me, I've got a bigger problem with that. You know what I mean? Sorry about the rant, David, but the linesman. What on earth is the linesman doing? He might as well not be there. You know what I mean? He's waiting for the watch to buzz. He's waiting for the VAR to overrule him. Just give the goal. Give the goal. You stood on the touchline. Give the goal.
Do you know what? With the VAR stuff, I feel that whereas before the referees and the linesmen were making the decisions and they needed obviously the help. That's why the VAR has been brought in. But I feel that I wouldn't say lazy is the right word, but I think they're not taking responsibility where they expect to show off. We miss it, VAR will pick it up, and then it's getting mistakes.
And then they're not making decisions, though, are they?
Yeah, they're not making decisions.
Leaving it.
Like I like it when the referee goes over to the side of the pitch, looks at the monitor, then reevaluates the situation, say, right, that's a goal or it's not, and then that's fine. That's all that people are.
That's what they're supposed to do.
If not, you're basically just getting refereed by someone in a stadium, a room somewhere else who's calling the shots. But I disagree with what you said, Si, really, because we all played in seasons where we'd say, well, if we got given a penalty because the referee didn't miss, we wouldn't have got relegated or we would have won the league. So it's always going to be the same. It's always going to keep the arguments and this ifs and buts in the games.
I do agree. I just think I am starting to wonder.
Si's raging off me.
I am starting to wonder about referees and linesmen and what's the point? You know what I mean? Like David just said there about somebody in a studio. And for me, get back to basics. Let the referee the game. If there's a question mark on the decision, let him go to the side. You know what I mean? It happened a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, and make a decision. You know that. It's just going to happen, and for me, it's the only way forward for football to move on with a consistent VAR.
What's the point in it? It doesn't help Bournemouth, does it? Bournemouth are relegated. Now, I do agree with you to a certain extent, David, because at the end of the day, if in that game it goes to 1-0, Villa will change the way they play, so there's nothing to say that it would have finished 1-0 because it would have been a different game. But from Bournemouth's point of view, that goal has cost them.
Yeah.
And now,
In hindsight, yeah.
when you look at that with Cardiff as well, when Cardiff had those offside goals against Chelsea, all Cardiff fans were saying, "Go, how did the linesman and the referee miss that? If not for that, we'd have stayed up." Blah blah blah. But I think this is different because the technology's there. Now, if the Hawkeye technology doesn't work, fine. But there's 2 linesmen, a referee, and a video assistant referee. Somebody has got to get that right and call it back and just say, "Hang on a minute, something's not working." That's a goal.
I agree about that decision side, but also I'll throw the other side of the coin on. So Bournemouth got relegated because they haven't been good enough this season. You know what I mean? Why did it take Bournemouth up to the Leicester City game to start winning games or start trying? Looking like they wanted to win games for me earlier on in the season. They just got turned over, tickled, and just got laughed at because you know what I mean. And what I don't get is why teams, same as Watford, that Watford didn't get relegated at Arsenal yesterday. Watford got relegated because they lost too many games in 38 games. Yeah. You know what I mean? The supporters need to understand that. And this is me being ruthless. This is me being anti-Watford. Love Troy Deeney. Love Nigel Pearson. Watford got relegated a little bit when they got rid of their manager with 2 games to go when they were safe. So they've lost the games under a caretaker manager. That's had a bigger impact than anything for me. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes it gets overshadowed, which is sad. But
yeah, it's like you're right. Bournemouth haven't been good enough, which kind of takes me on to something I wanted to ask you about. I saw a really interesting tweet. I'm not going to spend too long on this because it's just something I saw earlier. So this guy said he didn't understand basically why Eddie Howe, who's just taken Bournemouth down after spending his boatload of money for a club their size, but yet he's being praised as one of the best young English managers around. Should he get a big job? We should move on from Bournemouth. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, and I hadn't really seen many people saying that sort of thing. And I kind of went into the tweet and I actually looked at some of the comments, and there was quite a few people who do kind of agree that he didn't do very well at Burnley, and he's just taken Bournemouth down. Now, for me, he took Bournemouth from League 2 or something to the Premier League, then kept them in the Premier League for 6 seasons or whatever it is. To me, that's a very, very good job for a club that size. But I said to you about a month ago, and I think it was, that he looks like he's had enough, and he looks like it's probably the right time to move on. Possibly now, but the tweets. To that, is he overrated? Is what I was going to ask you as well.
I think you just answered your own question with a good job with getting promoted from League 2 all the way to the Premier League and keeping him in the Premier League for that long. A good manager isn't able to do that. You know what I mean? And I don't think he spent a lot of money before these last couple of seasons. I think Eddie Howe struggled with the money he spent over the last couple of seasons. I've had the demise when he spent more money. The players who he's done well with are the players he's tried and tested with. And for me, when he's bang right, by the way, Gaz. When they lost Matt Ritchie, people like Matt Ritchie, who the manager knew, but he can't keep them because they want to go and earn a lot more money at Newcastle, so to speak. To answer your question, is he overrated? No. I would like him to move to a bigger and better club and give him and test himself out. I think Burnley was a different thing. I don't know the ins and outs of Burnley, but I do know that I did hear that he was homesick and certain things were happening in his private life. So, you know what I mean? I think you've got to take that with obviously in consideration and give him the opportunity to do what's right for his family. And he went straight to Bournemouth, hit the ground running, got promoted into the Premier League, and cream always rises. He'll be back, definitely.
Would he have the same reputation if he was Italian? Is he? Is he only highly rated because he's an English young manager, which people are crying out for?
I disagree with all the comments there saying he's not a good manager. It's just a load of bollocks because that's just typical of the media or anything in the UK. Is that we just forget all the positives and all the great things he's done. We just focus on the one negative thing. Oh, he's just been relegated, but we just forget about the times he's just gotten promoted from League 2. It's a load of shit.
Been in the Premier League for 5 seasons, but
exactly, he's taken a small club from Bournemouth, kept him in the Premier League for 5 years. He's done a great job. So just because you've been relegated, they've had an off season, but in the Premier League, you don't get many chances. It's an unforgiving league, and there's ruthless.
No.
It's ruthless.
No, and this is my point with the journalists and people who decide, and social media. Obviously, we're going to touch on that soon. And people write things on social media to get a reaction and get all these retweets and get likes and things. And I'm not a big fan and big advocate of it, because for me, you're talking about someone who's just been relegated. There'll be nobody hurting yesterday more than Eddie Howe, a Birmingham fan, player, chairman. Eddie Howe will be absolutely devastated, because he'll take it to heart, and I guarantee you, he's the kind of man who will have offered his resignation yesterday, and it got turned down because they want to keep him. And the only way for Bournemouth to get back up next season is to have Eddie Howe as manager. And if somebody else takes him and gives him an opportunity, then so be it. But for me, if Eddie Howe's in the hot seat next year at Bournemouth, I'd put them in the top 6 all day long.
Yeah, he definitely gets to, deserves a chance to have another go. He shouldn't be sacked. See how he goes in the Championship next season for sure.
But if he leaves, and goes to a bigger and better club, that's up to him. But I don't believe he will. I think he owes Bournemouth now for next season.
I think Nathan Aki goes now.
Listen, there's going to be an exodus from all 3 clubs who come down, and that's the downside of being a relegated Premier League club, that those players want to play back in the Premier League, but are they good enough because they've just been relegated? It's a catch-22. You know what I mean? Who's going to take them? Are the clubs going to price them out? It's a game of cat and mouse, and some of them will get really good moves. Ake will get a good move. Probably Wilson will probably leave. Josh King will probably get a move. So they're going to generate a lot of money.
Already gone.
Yeah, they're going to generate a lot of money, but they've obviously got to fill those gaps as well.
What about Jack Grealish with Villa staying up? What do you think he does now?
I personally believe that he should move on. I think he's tested himself in the Premier League. I think he's at a good age now where he needs to further his career, because everyone knows Villa is a big club and a great club. But I think he's ready for that next stage now. To take him to the next level where he is, Man United. I know Man United look at him, or there's talk of it. So I think he does need to get out there, test himself a bit more, because he'd be looking to get into the England squad.
I totally agree. I totally agree, Si. For me, I think he's been there now. He's wore the t-shirt. He's earned his stripes now to go and progress onto a bigger and better club. When the Tottenham bid was rejected a few years ago, it hit him really hard, and I think he's, for his own development now, for his own England aspirations, he's got to move.
Playing in a midfield with Pogba and Fernandes is only going to do him good if he was to go to United, for instance. Do you know what I mean? Training with those type of players every week, that's going to do his England aspirations the world of good. And plus, having Martial, Rashford, Sancho, whoever, Greenwood in front of you, gives you more options than what he's got at Villa. In terms
he's also got to sign for the right club.
Yeah, he's got to play, hasn't he?
You know what I mean? He's got to play, because there's no point in signing for another team and being a big fish in a little pond. You know what I mean? He's got to go and play. If he goes and signs for Man City, for example, and makes that mistake like other players have done, he's not going to play. So he'll play as and when, but he needs to go and play football. But then if he goes and signs for Newcastle, for example, who gets a big takeover, loads of money, you know what I mean? Because that's another option, by the way. You know what I mean? It's a difficult one, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Do you think he should be looking for a Champions League club, though? Really?
I think he needs to be playing. He needs to play in Europe, doesn't he? He needs to play in Europe. If that's Tottenham, or if that's Man United, or if that's Chelsea, he needs to be playing for me in one of the top 6.
Yeah,
indeed. And then lastly, we've got the teams coming up from the Championship. So Leeds and West Brom, and then one of 4. Andy, how do you think Leeds will do back in the Premier League, where arguably they belong? Never let it be said that we're anti-Leeds.
They do. They're a big club. Fan base is unbelievable. And how they're going to do it, I can only judge them on what I've seen in this season against Premier League sides, and I watched them against Arsenal in the FA Cup, and I thought they were absolutely outstanding and should have beaten Arsenal in the first half, but they just couldn't score. I think one thing that they'll struggle with, and yes, I'll go back onto social media. Somebody put a tweet on, and I think it was TalkSport, about Paddy Bamford, that the question was, is he good enough to play in the Premier League? And Paddy obviously responded straight away in his usual humorous and just said it started already, because that's what he's like, and he's had it all his career. That he's never been given though an opportunity in the Premier League to do it week in week out. I remember that he left Middlesbrough to go and sign for Norwich. Didn't get promoted to Norwich. Dropped back down the Championship with Middlesbrough. They got promoted. He moved on again. He went back to Chelsea. He's dropped back down in the Championship. So he's a very, very good Championship player. But is he going to be good enough to move on in the Premier League?
Yeah. Have you heard anything about Cameron Cox and Man City, mate?
I've been talking to him. If that's true, he's not told me that.
He's not sharing.
He's not. Listen, I spoke to him. Over the last month, and I talked to his dad a little bit, and I know he got released by Cardiff City, and which shocked me massively, by the way, because obviously he's a very, very good player. He's obviously the future's bright. He's got an opportunity in his football career, and obviously I offered to help him out and just be a shoulder to cry on, so to speak. Not that he was upset, by the way, but I just wanted to give him an opportunity to help him out. But no, if he has, then that's the best kept secret in the world. Well, I hope he has.
Yeah, 100%.
I hope he has. Shall I text him now and then we'll find out, and it's exclusive on here?
Yeah. Right. So for me, out of those two teams who are definitely coming up to the Championship, I think West Brom are more equipped now. So if the season started tomorrow and they didn't sign any players, I think West Brom are more equipped for the Premier League than Leeds are. I think Leeds are very good going forward. However, I'm unsure if Paddy Bamford is a Premier League striker who's going to go and bag 20 goals for him each year. And I also have worries about their central defence, whereas West Brom, on paper, look quite solid all around the park, and they've got that bit of quality in Pereira and a couple of others. David, what do you think about the two of them going up?
I disagree with you. I think Leeds are better equipped for the style of and the philosophy that Bielsa implements. I think that the way they have things going at Leeds, I like the way they play a lot better than any other team in the Championship. And I think
so do I, by the way.
I just think, I think they're more equipped. I think they got a very good manager there. I'm not saying Bilic is not a great manager, but I think West Brom, in terms of the whole club, they're like a yo-yo, really. They get promoted, then they go back down, then they get promoted, then they go back down. I think Leeds as well, with the fan base that they have and with the ownership, I think they will be definitely investing to bring in better players as well with more experience in the Premier League. So I think, Leeds will definitely be well equipped. Whether they bring in more players now or not, or if they went into the season right this second, I think Leeds, I would fancy staying up more than West Brom. I just think
Leeds will score goals, won't they?
I just think Bielsa has more in his armory, really. Whereas, like, if the game's going against him, he'll then bring something else out. Whereas, I think he's got more tactical nous than Bilic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bielsa. I wanted him at Cardiff when Malky Mackay left.
Do you know what? He's coming across a little bit bitter, by the way. He's not someone.
Oh, I am 100% bitter. I am bitter. Very bitter.
I feel right now. I feel like I'm a referee in the middle here between you two. That's what I feel like.
I'd rather sit and have like three different opinions than
I agree.
Than one of us say something and then go, I
agree. And that's the good thing about. That's the good thing about football, though, and I love the opinions, and we can all have a debate and go on. I've got some breaking news, by the way, because Cameron
Cox is signed for Man City.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't signed for Man City. So just I won't read what he said, but it's not true. He wishes he signed for Liverpool. He wishes he has, but he hasn't. Yeah, so he's obviously he hasn't signed for anybody, but Man City one's just
exclusive.
Yeah, not true.
Exclusive. David, who is going to go up from the playoffs in the Championship?
Do you want my honest opinion? Do you know what?
Don't say it.
I really didn't think that Swansea were going to make the playoffs. When I had an interview a few weeks ago, just after lockdown, I thought Cardiff were well equipped to make it to the playoffs. They're really, really strong. They've been there, seen it, done it. It's going to be a tough one. I think Brentford will overturn the Swansea result at home. But also Swansea got good experience there. I fancy. Do you know what? I'm going to do it. Fuck it. I'm going for it. Fulham and Swansea in the final of the playoffs.
See,
I said,
I think it'll be Fulham Swansea in the playoff actually, but
Dear.
I didn't.
I think Brentford are mentally shot. I do. I really do.
I said Brentford. I said Brentford Fulham. I just think both of them have got too much for over 2 games. You know, on a one-off game, we seen the other day, one-off game, man sent off, things can change, and Swansea can get a good result. But I think second leg, listen, Griffin Park is a different place to go and play, and I think Brentford will get at them, and I do believe they'll score. So it's going to be can Swansea get at least a goal?
Yeah,
I just think that's what, you know, Swansea have got a few experienced players in there where, you know, like Routledge, Dyer, who they've had promotion before, so they do have that around them. I like, obviously, at the start of the season, they were playing very attractive football. Look, I want both Welsh clubs to do well, but I want Swansea to do well because I've played there before. I want Cardiff to do well because I'm from Cardiff, but I just think Fulham are the strongest teams in the playoffs, and Cardiff, unfortunately, are going up against them.
Yeah, well, I've said this all along. You know what I mean? Today's an important game. I wouldn't say it must win because you can't afford to lose in a playoff game. First leg, you know what I mean? You've got to still be in it for the second leg. But then when you go down to Craven Cottage, for me, if you can go down there with a clean slate and you can use it as a one-off game, as a cup final, you've got a slight chance. But if Fulham take a result down at Craven Cottage, I do fear for Cardiff massively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and the other thing as well, Cardiff have started quite well, better than I thought they were going to start.
Yeah, they are. But do you not think? I don't see them beating Fulham over 2 legs is the thing. Do you not think that's, if they get results, down to personnel as well, though? That Neil Harris will be delighted when he sees that team sheet and sees that some of the big hitters aren't playing. So you know, I mean, this is an opportunity now to win a game. You've got to go for it because this week's game, they might all be back. So you've got to make sure that you take a result to Craven Cottage, because 2 weeks ago we watched the game on Friday night after the show and it was absolutely it was hard watch. It was a hard watch. It was an upsetting evening. Yeah, but
you know, you take like Cardiff would probably take a draw, but like if you could go to Craven Cottage with like a 1-0 victory or a 2-1 victory, I think that sets it up nicely. But Fulham have got so many quality players going forward. Yeah. What did you think of that red card yesterday then, lads? Because a few people in the chat were saying they didn't think it was a red.
Listen, the ref he hasn't got VAR to help him out, so he's made a split decision what he thought on the day. I'm not sure if it's been looked at today, but I thought it would have got overturned. So I'm still expecting it to get overturned. I'm still expecting them to appeal it and get it overturned. And that's not me being biased. I just think it was a bit harsh.
If you want me to lie, I'd say I think it's a bit harsh. But if you want my honest answer, I was playing Daddy Daycare, so I didn't even see
it. I thought it was a bit harsh, but I thought Swansea were the better team as well. So
they deserve to win on the day. And they missed a penalty. They deserve to win. So you know, what I mean, they've given themselves a great opportunity to go to Wembley. So
and he's done a good job as well, the manager there. I think a lot where he's come from with the young English squad. Everyone's like writing him off straight away, but he's proved that he's got what it takes to be a championship manager. And he's done really, really well there, and he's got a great group of lads there as well. And it's nice to see that the philosophy is back to how it was a few years ago with the style of play.
And listen, you know, I mean, we're not anti-Swansea on here. That I love the way that they play. I love the way.
Really, you two were all for Cardiff before I jumped on it. You know that.
Yeah, I know. I do love the way that they play football, and I think they lost that philosophy a couple of seasons ago, and I think they lost the way that they looked. They lost their identity, and it wasn't a pretty watch. And I think the demise of Swansea was quite a happy thing in Cardiff and for Cardiff fans to watch. But now they've got their mojo back and they're playing the football again, and they've got the right people back in charge. And listen, if they don't go up this year, they'll be disappointed. But I think, like you said, David, nobody expected them to get in the playoffs. They probably didn't expect it. But likewise, I said that today about Cardiff City. If Cardiff don't go up, don't see it as a negative. See it as a positive that you've massively overachieved because you sacked your manager.
Cardiff and Swansea have overachieved, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you know, I mean, the pressure
punching well above their weight.
The pressure for me is on the other two, so let them battle it out and see if you can one of us can get a positive result.
I'm glad to see Si is being really positive tonight about that, you know, Cardiff and all this going on.
Well, no, I think they've done really well together, but I just when you look at look, Neil Harris has done a very, very good job to get him to the playoffs. I didn't think he was the best choice for manager. I'm still not sure, but you can't fault the results and what he's done. He's done very well.
The only thing we can't have,
playoffs.
we can't have South Wales derby in the final because the last South Wales derby was absolutely horrific and that can't happen at Wembley because it was the worst game of football I've ever had to endure in my life. It was just it was the worst 0-0 draw I've ever seen in my life, and I don't fancy watching that again.
Do you know what the thing is though? Is that they obviously make the final. It's gonna be behind closed doors, and imagine if it was a full house. The atmosphere would be incredible.
Oh yeah, and do you know what? That's probably why I don't want it to happen. Because if I ever did want it to happen, I'd want it full to the brim, and it just, or even move it to the Millennium Stadium, and it'd just be, it would be
rocking.
It'd be amazing.
It would be awesome. Just as much as I don't really want to play Swansea in the final because I don't think my nerves will take it, I actually think like Cardiff versus Swansea in the final, like in a full house at Wembley, would just be, something special, which, is unlikely to happen all too often. I just think it would be superb. Okay, and the last kind of story, which we were going to discuss, is Wigan's relegation and administration. I feel like I've had enough ranting so far today, Andy, already. So I'm going to leave you to steer this conversation, mate.
David,
that's going to be much better.
I'd love to know your thoughts. I've been very vocal about what Wigan have done and why they've done it, and the timing of why they did it. It's obviously a business decision going into administration, but obviously it's now affected them massively, and it's going to have a really negative impact. But what's your thoughts on why they went into administration when they did after lockdown, and B, obviously the accumulation of relegation as well?
I've listened to a lot of things on this, but I think it's a shambles how owners are allowed to come in and then just get in trouble, then just shoot off, where they leave like the local communities and their football club in a lot of tough times, really, because the only ones who are going to be affected by this are the players, all the staff behind the scenes who don't get mentioned, the fans, and all around the local area. So I think from that point of view, I think that the FA, the PFA, whoever involved, need to be a lot stricter on the sense of who's buying these football clubs, because they're just coming in and they're just coming in and wrecking things, really. Whereas obviously they've taken that to go in administration, which has eventually cost them. But maybe that's what they need to do to rebuild and sell on their better players to rebuild again and go again in League One.
Obviously, when you played, was Dave Whelan the chairman when you were there, or was it someone who took over?
Yeah, Dave Whelan was the chairman there, and he was a good guy. And we had very good people around the club who cared about the club, and that's the problem. You have some idiot owners come in, don't give a fuck about the club, and then they ruin it.
Well, that's what upsets me now, though, because you've just said there, Dave Whelan, and I met Dave a couple of times from because Cardiff and Wigan had a really good battle a few times, and obviously got to speak to him quite a few occasions, and I feel really sorry for him that he's built up this new stadium, built up a club from absolutely nowhere, and then all of a sudden now it's been ripped open and just ruined, and you don't know where this is going to leave them, because there's not just relegation. You know what I mean? Yes, they might be in a better position financially because they're going into administration. Someone's going to take over, but are the right people going to take over? Are they going to take over for the right reasons? Are they going to do well in League One next season? There's no guarantee. It's a horrible league. There's some massive sides in that league as well. They might go down again. It's never ending, and I do really fear for them, because they're not the biggest of clubs. They're not very well attended. You know what I mean? Obviously, rugby's plays a huge part in Wigan as a place, and I do hope for them, because I've had some good battles with Wigan when Jason Roberts and Nathan Ellington used to play up front for them, and obviously Cav moved there, so I've had some really good times playing against them, and I do hope they get out of it, but I do massively feel for them.
Here's one quick question from me to finish off on this, and then we'll go to some live chat questions. Do you think the EFL has managed the situation well, Andy?
Which situation? The Wigan one. Let me start by saying the EFL didn't even manage the lockdown situation well. So how on earth do they think they're going to be a sort of football club out is beyond me. The League Two, League One, and the Championship don't even do the same thing. So how on earth are they going to get owners right in a football club? Never ever happening. Never happening. They're a shambles of an organisation. and they need to really look at themselves in the mirror and understand that that they can't afford to ruin football clubs. You've already lost Bury, you know what I mean? And Bury was a good club for me growing up. I had some really good times there in my early career. I played for England there, and I played a few reserve games and a first team game there, and loved my time every time I played at Gig Lane, and absolutely devastated that football club's not there anymore, and I have to see and hope that they can get back up. And we can't afford it to happen to somebody else, especially not a club like Wigan. And for me, the EFL and the Football League and maybe the Premier League as well, the teams and organisations have to take responsibility about what's going on.
Yes.
So your answer is no, basically.
Yeah. But what about you, David? What do you think of the way that the EFL kind of managed it all?
Yeah, I agree. I just think it just comes down to all these organisations need to be coming together and just thinking, well, how are you letting these owners just come in and rip the clubs apart and then when it goes against them, just getting up and leaving, and they're leaving the aftermath of all the people who care about the club to then build it back up. So I think the restrictions and to get over these regulations need to be a lot tighter, really, because owners are for many years now have just come in, they're using it as like a monopoly game, playing around with it, and if it doesn't work out, they just get off and leave the club as a shambles.
Yeah, I think it's bang on, and I think the people are using it as a championship manager. They're thinking, I'm going to go in, we're going to get into the Premier League in our first year, and we're going to earn £500 million straight away. It's never going to happen. It's just it's ridiculous ideas, ridiculous business plan, and look where they are now. They're going to be in League One next season. They're going to sell all the assets in the summer, probably cheaper than they need to or they should be doing, and they're going to lose some good players, young players, and potentially they're going to end up selling the ground or whatever, and it's just going to be it's going to be hard. It's going to be a heartache. It's going to be, especially for ex-players as well. You know that it's going to be even worse for the supporters, current players, ex-players, and people who care.
What you say about owners? Is it the Watford owner who owns like two other football clubs? Like he owns Watford, Udinese in Granada. To me, I think that is absolutely ridiculous that you could own more than one professional football, professional football club in the top, top tiers, basically of any European league. I think that's ludicrous because, if Watford get into Europe, like Europa League, what happens if they play Udinese? You can't assure that they're what's it called? I've forgotten the word, but you can't assure that that's going to be fair and all above board. It's impossible. It's
I do find that quite surreal. The rules from UEFA that you can't own two clubs in the same country. Obviously, then you got the players moving from one country to another. You just passed along. You know what I mean? I know Watford have had a couple of players on loan from.
Didn't Vincent Tan own another company, another club as well? Thinking about it.
I don't know if he does.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
But to be fair, listen, they're all businessmen, and if the business is in football, I'd rather that owner though than the owners at Wigan. So it's a catch-22. I'd rather somebody who cares and who wants to put the money in and do the right thing and own 10 clubs than somebody who's using it as a joke to mess it up.
I agree.
No comment. Okay. Let's have some questions from the live chat.
There's a good question there on James Costley. Start with that one. I like that.
Hang on a minute. You've got to do them in order, mate. Otherwise, people get all.
Sorry.
They all get all stressy. Otherwise,
sorry. James
start messaging me saying you haven't read my question. Right. Richie says, should Ryan Giggs call up Nico Williams to the Wales setup, ready for the Nations League as soon as possible to get him capped? David, what do you reckon?
I think he should. Yeah, 100%. I'm not in doubt about that. I think you should get him in the squad because I remember when we did that with Harry Wilson before, we got him in the squad and I don't think he made any first team appearances. He was in the 21s for Liverpool, and we were just like, right, let's get in the squad, make sure he plays for Wales because otherwise England might nab him and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's important that Wales try and find the best young talents, and he's certainly proved that he is. So get him in there, give him a cap, and give him that experience. And to be quite honest, he'd be my first choice right back.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Even with that ridiculous red dyed hair now, he after the Liverpool game.
To be honest, if he's been playing the way he has when I've seen him, then he can dye his hair wherever he wants.
Right, Andy, what was the question which you were referring to?
James Costley's question. Who's been your most influential person in your life? Yeah.
in my life, I'd probably say my dad, because he pushed me to always be better and always strive for better. I think I was telling my son this story actually the other day, and so I was watching a local game in Cardiff once. I was around about 10, 11 years of age, and I was watching a team there. And I said to my dad, "Look, if I don't make it to professional football, I can always play locally here for a team." He's like, "You're a disgrace. That is like, in other words, that's not good enough goals." And he sent me to bed because I didn't, because my dreams were not bigger than being just locally. He can accept it. So I think he always pushed me, and he was always like, he was my biggest critic, but he was also my biggest fan as well. So I think definitely my dad is my biggest influential person with that. In terms of in the game, I think probably Gary Speed would always give me the best advice when I was his teammate at Sheffield United. Always took me under his wing.
I agree with my dad's on the chat right now. My dad's been critical of me probably all my life. He is on this show, to be fair. And I'll say the same thing, that my dad massively tough on me when I was younger growing up, but in a good way. That I remember playing local football on a Sunday as you do junior football, and sat around the dinner table having Sunday dinner, and just being brutally honest that scored 2, but you should have scored 4, should have scored 5, and it's just been, you know what I mean? Because there's no point thinking you've done well if you can go at that other level. And I do think that it's not being negative. It's seeing the positives. And I think young players nowadays, they get told all the things that they want to hear all the time. And for me, sometimes they need to be told the truth and being brutally honest, because it's dog eat dog out there. And I don't think sometimes that they get told as many negatives as they should get, because people are trying to protect him, but then all of a sudden they get released at a young age, and who protects them then?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%. So, David, you mentioned Gary Speed there. I'm going to jump ahead and just go to the Wales setup, and I wanted to ask you about your relationship with John Toshak. Obviously, you famously criticised him quite, publicly, I guess, would be the terminology. And I guess I wanted to ask you about your relationship with him, and also if you regretted doing that publicly in hindsight, or you don't and you stand by every word.
I don't really have any regrets. I think I spoke to a journalist and they asked me a few things and they twisted quite a lot of the words. I was a young professional back then, so they did twist a lot of words like fucking most journalists. But I did say things, that I probably shouldn't have said, but I don't take back from my point, which was basically, Toshak wanted all his players to be playing at a higher level. I was 17, 18. I just broke into the Premier League, and no disrespect to League Two players whatsoever, but he would then pick a League Two player and put him in my position and play in front of me. So my point was, well, you've wanted all your players to be playing at Championship or Premier League level. Now that I'm there, you're then playing a League Two player in front of me. So that was my point, really. So I was, and at that time I was playing. So, but in terms of our relationship, I never had a bad relationship with John Toshak. I was very grateful for the opportunity that he gave me and all the other younger players. That was just the only episode really where we fell out, because I just voiced my opinion and not playing in front of League Two players at that time when I was, playing in the Premier League.
How difficult was that, mate, to see that obviously the gulf in kind of players, what you were playing with and training with? Because obviously you've got Premier League players and then Championship players, and then obviously to make the numbers up, so to speak, the lesser league or lower league players are coming into the group, and obviously your expectations are that you're going to play because you're playing in the Premier League, you're playing week in, week out, you're playing well, you're scoring goals. So how disappointing then is it to not play and be selected?
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, it's hard to take, because you're playing in the Premier League or you're playing club level, then you go away on international duty and you want to play, because if you're just going away just to make up the numbers, or you just training there and you want game time, it's the most frustrating thing in the world. You want to go away, you want to play for your country, you want to play for your club, so that you're there. That's what you get paid to do. But in the sense of the quality, I think over the years when we were under Toshak, from the way we then blossomed and grew in the sense with Gary Speed and then Chris Coleman, it was huge strides really in the sense of the professionalism and the level of players that kicked on.
So how different was it with the Wales managers that you just named there and you worked under? Everyone has their own styles, everyone has their own little techniques and quirks, and probably team selections really, and squad selections. So how do all managers differ, and which one was your favourite to play under?
I love my time with Gary Speed. I think he brought me back into the squad, but I think Chris Coleman was amazing, just because I think everyone wanted to play for him, And that was the only time, and I've said this many times, it's the only time that I've been on the bench and I've wanted my team to win. Because normally I'd be like, oh, I hope they lose. I hope they lose, and so then I can come on, make an impact, score a goal, then we draw or win. And that's I think that's just maybe a natural feeling for most footballers. But when we were away with the Euros and with Wales, our aim and our focus was qualifying to get to a major championship. We were all pulling in the right direction. I think that's his strength, really, Chris Coleman, where he kept everyone involved. We all felt together. And when I was on the bench, I wanted us to win just as much as if I was playing.
So how proud were you then that obviously you played a major part in probably, I'd say, the more successful era in Welsh football? So how proud are you that that you were involved in that kind of team squad selection?
To be quite honest, I think it's probably better to ask me that maybe in like another 5, 6, 7 years' time, because I'm one of these people that I don't look back and go, I'm proud of these things. I'm not proud of that, because when I made my debut for Wales, I was the youngest ever player at one point for about 10. When I beat Ryan Giggs' record, and I come on for him. At that point, I wasn't even that proud as well. I mean, I'm very strange like that. I always strive to just go on to the next thing, go on to the next thing. But I think maybe in a few years' time, I will be proud looking back at that. And I was very grateful I worked extremely hard to be in the Welsh squad. I was very grateful to play with, amazing players, and had a great group of guys involved in that as well.
Were you expecting?
Sorry, Si.
Were you expecting to be in the Euro squad when as you're waiting for the Euro squad to be announced for the tournament? Were you confident that you were going to be in that squad to go there, or was it kind of, you weren't quite sure?
Well, I think I was out of the squad for a little while, and then I broke back in, and because I was on really good form for Birmingham, and we were towards the top end of the championship, and so I was performing at a high level there. I was reaching almost double figures, and definitely with assists I was always double figures. So I was doing really well there, and then I thought I should be in the squad before then, but as footballers we always believe that we should be playing or involved anyway. But I think on that sense, I thought I had a good chance because I had a good enough season to get me to the Euros. And then I was a bit disappointed when we went to the Euros that I didn't have no time on the pitch, just because I thought that my form going into there, I did enough to get on the pitch. And but it is what it is. I made the squad. Very, very grateful for that.
I thought you could have come on a couple of times off the bench, particularly when we were looking for a goal, because that season for Birmingham, you'd scored a few worldies. And like you were in my opinion, which obviously does not mean a lot, I think that was one of your best seasons in your career, and I think you had a real purple patch for Birmingham. And I really think, and that was one of my questions actually later, was that from the outside looking in, I feel like your form became more consistent as your career went on and you got a bit older. Do you think that's a fair observation? Do you feel like that, or do you feel?
I think with Birmingham is that I had a manager, and at Doncaster when I was there with Dean Saunders, I think I had 22, 23 assists when we were in League One. I scored 10 goals and we got promoted that year. I think from that point, when I've always had managers who trusted me and believed in me, that's when I performed my best. When I had managers who didn't know how to handle certain things, that's when it wouldn't go so well. But when I had managers who understood me as a person and liked me that way, I would more tend to get trusted, and that's when my performances would be better. I think with Wales, when we went away, especially when we played Portugal in the semi-finals, I think we had a couple of strikers on, and my game is obviously, it was crossing, delivering or whatever. We had Vokesy on and so on. I just thought, well, that's one of the games we were chasing that could have been brought on and so on. But look, I went away with Wales. Not many people can say that they represented their country at that level,
Yeah, 100%.
You just mentioned there, mate, about managers and believing in managers, but obviously I think that also goes both ways as well, doesn't it? That a manager believes in you, you buy into what they're doing and what they're trying to do, so you run through a brick wall for them, don't you? And how important is it to play for a manager that believes in you? And obviously the other side of the coin is when that manager leaves, how do you feel and how do you deal with those kind of situations?
Yeah, I think when Rowett left Birmingham, for example, it just didn't make no sense. We were 3 points off second place. We were thinking, add a couple of players in January and we might have a right go to get promoted. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we sacked him because the owners again wanted to fucking play games, and right, we'll bring Zola in because we want to play a certain style of play. We played Rotherham, we won 4-2, and we played Ipswich, we won 1-0, and the owners literally slated us, saying, why are you not beating Rotherham 6-7-0? They're just Rotherham, this and that. And obviously our response at any level, especially the Championship, to go Saturday, Tuesday, and to win any game at that level is very difficult. So
Yeah.
I think we felt we were getting disrespected, and I think Rout felt the same way, and we got rid of him. And so I was disappointed when he left, to be quite honest.
But I think it
Yeah.
does. It leaves a sour taste in your mouth, doesn't it? And you start to think, you know, I mean, you've got to then reinvent yourself to another manager. You know, what I mean, you then worry and you're going into games feeling pressure instead of just enjoying the way that certain managers like you to play and playing with confidence, playing with passion, playing with pride, and just your own mental state just does change quite drastically and dramatically overnight.
Yeah, it puts you on obviously edge, but it is what it is. You know, you all fight for your place. Everyone's there, but I think you know, we were bringing in players at that point, which were not all of them, but some were nowhere near better than the players we had already. So I don't think that it actually benefited the squad. There was a few additions there where, of course, they did, but there was some others, most of them, who didn't. And I think, you know, it's just with the situation with Zola, I could sense that he was a great guy. Obviously, he was a ledge player. You know, he's a really, really nice person, but you know, he wanted me to stay. So I was negotiating a new deal with Rowett, negotiating a new deal with Zola at that point. And then the last few hours of January transfer window, Zola rung me up. He said, look, I'm going to have to let you go. Otherwise, you're going to be made to train on your own. I'm going to have to make your life hell because I've been told that you have to leave. And I was just like, well, we've just been negotiating a new deal like for all these many months and I want to stay. So that's when I had to go. I went to Bristol City on loan. And from that point, really, that's what it started to put a bit of taste in my mouth where I was just fed up with the politics involved. I was heavily drinking at this point as well. My drinking was in full flow. So I think it was just time for me just to move on.
How, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you first started drinking?
I started drinking when I was about 19, 20, but it was never too much. I started to drink a lot when I was about 23, 24 and upwards. So yeah, I just, whether I was feeling low, I was kind of like just self-medicating where I just drink, day in, day out, or binge drinking, whatever it may be. But it was getting later on in my career where that's where it was like really hitting where, I was just doing stupid things when I was drinking, and it was just one having the effect of making me happy or having a good time. It was always dark places for me when I was drinking.
Would that be through boredom though, David? You know what I mean? Obviously, I think people, and I'm not preaching to people here, that being a footballer, you know what I mean, you're in this kind of bubble. You know what I mean? You don't really work or train a long time during the day, and it's something what you love doing. So it's not even a chore that you don't start till probably 10 o'clock between 9 and 10 o'clock. You can be home by dinner time, so you've got all the rest of the day, all the rest of the afternoon. You get all this time off. So you've got to try and keep yourself busy. Sometimes that I've had similar things that probably it was an injury what probably forced me into drinking heavily during my Middlesbrough days, and you go on a tough spiral, and it only takes probably something to go wrong before then you realise that you're in a bit of a mess and you're in a dark hole and it's hard to get out of.
Yeah, I think from that perception, I was like, I had a young family anyway, so I wouldn't say it was just down to boredom. I was just always, if I was down, I'd go and drink, and then I felt, to be quite honest, I'd always feel indestructible. So I just thought that I could do whatever I wanted when I wanted, and then just, effectively just eventually caught up with me. So just to spiral out of control, I tried taking my own life on 3-4 occasions. So I think from that point of view, it was just getting too much, and that's when I knew I had to sort my shit out.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to. We're going to revisit that because obviously we're going to talk about obviously the foundation that you're fully involved in. I would like to go right back to the beginning really and just talk about your first club, where it all started out. So where your football journey started. You know what I mean? Obviously, we're not going to go through obviously every single nook and cranny in every single club, but so why Bristol City?
So I was picked up from a scout there at the age of 10. So I started playing football when I was 6, and I had to go to Barry because there was no teams in Cardiff that was set up at that young. So I went there, and then eventually I got picked up by a scout in Barry there at the age of 10. I got asked to go and have a little training session, a trial with Bristol City, and that's eventually when I signed a contract, which would eventually then help me establish me into the first team.
Right, okay, so were you happy with Bristol City, or did they have other options as well?
I did have a few options, but I think in terms of Bristol City, I wanted to stay close to home. Cardiff were never really knocking that much at that age. So Bristol
Was that a
picked me
regret?
up
Was
and
that a
then-
regret? Was that a regret?
No, not really. I think
Or a
Bristol.
disappointment?
I love my time at Bristol City. I think the academy there, the way they run it, the people that were
Very
there
good.
were amazing. The people there were amazing to me. So I was very happy with my football education there. I wouldn't take anything back, and I thought it was a great setup. They do things the right way, and it's a good club.
So is that why you returned after Birmingham City? Because obviously people say don't go back, and obviously you went back on loan, but obviously your love for the club and your times that you had must have been happy to return.
Yeah, I was happy to return as well, and you know, I have a young family who was in Cardiff as well, so it was closer for me to see them. So it just all fitted quite well, where you know I could see them, I could be near my family again, and Bristol was always so good for me, and the stadium was a lot better. They've kicked on a lot further than my time there the first time. So it was a great time for me to go back and put my experience on the younger players there. So. Yeah, that's the reason why I decided to go on loan. I knew the manager; he was an ex-teammate of mine. So I decided to go there and just play football, trying to just make sure that I stayed in the Welsh squad.
So, David, you know when you left Bristol initially and you went to Wigan for 2 million, 2006, I think it was there, like, obviously Wigan's quite far away from Cardiff and from Bristol. Was that difficult for you to settle in? Still quite young at that point. And was there anyone who, really helped you settle in to on and off the pitch?
I think it was a very difficult time for me. I think, at that age, I realised that, I did have a good agent at that time, but the whole agency were like, they were speaking to me every day. And as soon as I got the move, they were not speaking to me as much. And I didn't really have the great support around me, which I felt like I needed and I wanted at that time, because I was so young. I was like 17, 18, moved to the Premier League, 4 or 5 hours away from home. And my young partner at the time, she was pregnant. So we lived in a hotel. We were waiting for a house to be built, and et cetera, et cetera. And it was very difficult because obviously if you have lived with a pregnant woman, it can not be easy. So we were basically in a hotel. We were away from
my
home.
wife's in
no
the chat,
support.
so it's totally easy.
You be careful.
Yeah,
so it's very difficult, and I think that don't get me wrong. There's people at the club who were great. They were always looking out for me, and there's a few senior players as well who would always try and look out at you. But my partner was the only person that had me up there, so we kind of just, I had to go and be with her and so on. She couldn't be left alone. She didn't have no one around her. I didn't have no one around me, so it was very difficult. Yeah.
Especially if that's such a young, it's like 16, 17. That's like the age of my oldest kid now, and he's 16 just about, but I just think I can't imagine him moving to Wigan next year. Do you know what I mean? Like on his own, this seems incredible. I know football's like a slightly different world, but the one thing I guess I was interested in is obviously like you do work now to try and help footballers, people generally with kind of mental health issues and stuff like that. But I wondered if you think that clubs could do more to support, they sign these young players from all around the world really these days at the age of 16, 17, 18. Should they and could they do more to help them settle into the area, settle into, finding a house, making sure that they're okay? Like you said about your agents kind of stopped calling once the move was sorted, whereas really the support you needed was after the move was sorted. Do you think clubs could do more and agents could do more and just generally people could do more to help young players?
Yeah, I think obviously I've been retired now and I'm out of the game, and I don't know how most agents look after their players this day and age, but I feel that it's kind of like, right, the agents got their few quid for getting the move. Right, we've done our job. Let's just let them crack on. That's what I felt. They could be more of a support in terms of definitely the mental health side of things. To look after you, and in terms with the football clubs, yes, of course they can do more. There's some clubs out there who do amazing jobs with their players, but there's way more that don't do things good enough. I think in terms of like, especially the mental side of things, where players don't even know where to turn, they don't know who they can trust to talk about the way they feel because they don't want to jeopardize their contracts. It's even like the players who get released. As soon as the players are released, no one gives a fuck about them really, because they just like, oh, okay, well, he's been released, he's not part of us now, who cares? And that's where I think that they probably need the most care, because we don't like getting rejected as adults, never mind as young kids. So
Yeah.
but we think it's okay in this industry.
Do you think the PFA, Dave? Do you think that the PFA should play a more pivotal role?
Oh yeah, huge. I think the PFA need to have fresher ideas. I've always explained that. I think there's a lot of older heads in there where they've been there too long and they've not got fresh ideas. I think younger people need to come in with ideas how to move the game on, because I had one senior football player who had an amazing career. He played for his national team. He played in the Premier League for many years, and he messaged me the other week and he said, "Oh, have you got any numbers of counsellors? Because I don't know who to turn to." I said, "You can speak to the PFA." He didn't even know how the PFA run or act, and he had
incredible.
He had a career for about 20 years. So
I had a similar thing when I came out the game. I was lost. I didn't have a clue where to turn, and I was probably 6-7 months down the line, and I was contemplating all sorts of things. Look, really negative thoughts in a really, really dark place, and somebody on my behalf spoke to the PFA, and they said that I should have got in touch with them earlier. But unless you know, and unless you're told, or and I also think you've got to be the kind of person who's looking for advice as well. If you know what I mean, because everyone thinks being a professional footballer that you're in this hierarchy that you never have to work again, you never have to do this, never have to do that, and I think it's such a false idea and a false position. And sometimes you're embarrassed to ask for help and embarrassed to just to tell people the story and what you're going through. And I spoke to Richard Jobson, I spoke to Andy Barlow at the PFA, and they were great. I'll be honest. Once I got to talk to them, but I'd love to sit down with them and explain the process that I had before I got to talk to them and how low I felt and etc. So I just think it was such a You won't believe what I've just Fulham have just got. But the show must go on, eh? But it was a disappointing part of my life. But the thing that I would love to pass on to people like you do now, I'd love to go in there to football clubs and explain the options which I didn't have, and then the options that I did have, and the options that and just to reassure people, really, you know what I mean? Because that could happen at 16, 17, 18, maybe it's earlier, but it can also happen at 35, 36, 40. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how old you are, you still have the same feelings, and you still feel as though, where do you turn? Where do you go next? And you know what I mean? So I think they have a massive part to play, which then moves me on to your obviously foundation. Can you tell everybody obviously when your foundation was set up and what's involved in your foundation? Because obviously it does some amazing work.
Yeah, so with the foundation we set up. So initially, me and a friend of mine who's locally, he's a lot older than me. We were, because I spoke publicly about my mental health. We were just initially trying to help people in the local community who couldn't afford to have counselling or afford to go to have these sessions. We were just bringing on mental health anonymous meetings where people would just come and have a coffee, share our experience of how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis, anxiety or depression or trauma we've been going through. And it just got people talking really more than anything else, and just show that it's okay not to obviously feel down. It's okay not to feel okay. So it was just it started off with that. We then put on training sessions, which we were obviously creating a routine where healthy body, healthy mind. So we just went down that route, and we just continue to help people on a daily basis, where we have live chats, we have Instagram where we support people. But away from that, I do have a business with a psychotherapist, which is a Crystal Matrix, where we have got mental health courses online, which we support people. So if people don't feel that they can go and speak to counsellors face to face, that you can buy the online course, and just goes to obviously the inner child. It brings out your goals in life, and it goes into obviously depression. They got hypnotherapy sessions on there. So from that angle, we are supporting people a lot more.
Great stuff. That's absolutely amazing, and that's not just football, is it? That's obviously the general public, anybody who feels as though that.
Yeah, so my initial thought process when I set up my foundation and with the courses as well is that I don't want to just be helping elite athletes or any athletes out there. I want to be able to help people who are in local communities who can't afford to have these counselling sessions or who can't afford to have this help, to make sure that they're still being thought of and there's still help there that they need.
Fair play. And no, it's amazing, because and I think only when you do obviously go through tough times in your life that and that can happen at any age, that you obviously you need to be able to speak to the right people and speak to people who've been in those kind of situations, and I think I've researched and I've looked into it, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing what you're doing, and I hope it keeps continuing to help as many people as it can.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%, David. I wanted to ask you just quickly, really. So, I've had issues with drinking and sort of depression, anxiety, all that sort of stuff myself since I was 20. So coming on 20 years soon. And I was kind of really just wondering. I read, I think it was either Ledley King or Saul Campbell's book, where they said, basically, when they were struggling with depression and off the field issues, they didn't feel comfortable going to the coaching staff or the manager, because they were worried about losing their place in the team, because the manager or the coach would report to the manager, and they would basically say that because they were having maybe thoughts of anxiety and stuff like this, that it would automatically mean that they weren't able to play. So they would then not necessarily not know where else to go. Well, they wouldn't know where else to go, but also they wouldn't go to the people that necessarily they thought they should go to because of fear of losing their place in the team. So I was wondering, one, if that was a similar kind of thing for you, but two, also, do you think that's quite a common thing for footballers as well?
Yeah, that's why I chose not to. I didn't want to jeopardize putting food on the table for my family, because I didn't want my contract to get pulled. I didn't want to stop them from playing me, because that's the only time that I felt free, really, is on a Saturday when I could just go out there and express how I was feeling, just felt free for 90 minutes. So yeah, I wouldn't, some of the managers that I had in my career, I wouldn't necessarily think that I was comfortable to go and speak to, because I remember I had Kevin Blackwell at Sheffield United, and honestly, I couldn't think of anything worse than go and speak to someone like him, because he wasn't approachable at all. He was always kind of like a bully, really, towards the younger players, and he was just about that life, and I didn't like it. So from that point of view, I think if he was a manager this day and age, and I know he's been assistant recently in Cardiff, but I'm surprised that players haven't been complaining about his approach if he's still the same way as he was at Sheffield United. So I think from that point of view, I wouldn't have been able to go and speak to someone like that, for example, because he would probably say, you're not playing, it's a sign of weakness, pull yourself together, you're mentally not right, and that's it. So from that point, I expect players not to speak to them, because they feel like you're going to get your place taken off them.
I think also you've got to trust somebody so much to divulge all this kind of information. That, what I mean. If you're not comfortable in probably telling your partner, you're not comfortable in telling your friends, then I think your manager's the last person on your mind who you're going to start talking to. That you probably don't want to tell your teammates. So that's why things get worse and worse and worse, because you keep it all to yourself. Then things are 10 times worse the next week, or the week after. And like David said there, the only time you've got your release is a Saturday. And then if you're not playing on the Saturday, then all of a sudden things spiral out of control. They get even worse. Midweek games come, you don't play again. And all of a sudden, your life is 10 times worse. And it's no fault of your own, because all you want to do is just go out there and kick a football around and showcase your ability, and just take a little bit of frustration out on someone else, something else. And then all of a sudden you're not allowed to do it. And it's just, it's not nice, and it's not it's not a nice position to be in, but you know what I mean. And people say, and it winds me up when people say it. By the way, they're on about money, and they're on about Sol Campbell, for example, that he's come out quite publicly and said the amount of times that he's suffered with depression and things, and he's not allowed. Well, why is he not allowed? Just because he's a multi-millionaire? Well, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant, because, like I said, football is such a niche thing where you get so much time by yourself, and sometimes, and I mean by yourself, you can be by yourself for probably 4 days. You know what I mean? Without seeing other people, apart from going to work or go to training, and it's such a lonely time at times. And you know what I mean? You try and do the right thing, but sometimes being on your own is the wrong thing because it messes with your head, and you start to do things that you shouldn't do, drinking, gambling, and it spirals out of control.
I think with that as well is that where I struggle is that I did see a few counsellors throughout my career, but I just used to look at them and they would give me advice, and I used to think, how the fuck could you give me advice one-on-one in here? Because you're not having to play in front of 50, 60,000 people. So I couldn't really relate to counsellors that well, unless it was someone like me, until I could relate to someone who was similar to me. And the only time that I related to someone that before I checked into rehab was another fellow addict who was an alcoholic, and I only ever did drink. So I was literally, until he said that, you're like me, you're an alcoholic, I didn't really listen to anyone before. So until I could relate to someone, it's the same thing as footballers. If they can't relate to someone who's been in their position, then it's very difficult for them to understand.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And sorry, started butting there. I just think, and I'm not preaching. I'm not looking for people to feel sorry for footballers and people. You know what I mean? Because it is a privileged situation to be in, but also it's a lonely and a negative place at times. Because 1 minute, Dave said there, you know what I mean? You can be at the top of the world. You're playing in front of 50, 60, 70,000 people. And then the next week you could be 17th man and feeling as low as you could ever feel. And it's such a, it's like a roller coaster. It's so unexplainable. It's just scary. I
think it's just obviously that I think, and you hit it on the nail on the head there, is that people think, well, just because you're a multi-millionaire or you're doing this and doing that, it just hides your emotions. Well, it doesn't really. You still have to live with yourself of certain things or what you're going through. I think the only example that I use is that Robin Williams was one of the funniest guys that's ever graced the planet, and I think from the outside, everyone's like, it's very, he's taking his own life, and whereas, like, I don't know why, but surrounded in like football stigma is like kind of like, well, do you know what? Just man up. You're loaded. You're on X amount of money a week. You shouldn't have these feelings. So I don't understand why it's aimed towards a lot of footballers with this. It's like as soon as we went into lockdown about COVID thing, everyone started blaming the footballers again. It's just crazy.
Yeah, footballers fault. You earn too much money, so they should be. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's stupid.
Ridiculous.
So, David, earlier on when you were talking about your drinking, Gaz sent in a question. He said, when did you realise that you had a problem rather than just being someone who kind of liked having a drink?
I think it's when my ex-wife just used to tell me, saying, look, you've got a problem, like everything's just not normal. Because I was going home, I was smashed at my house, I was always trying to do something stupid, and drinking was no longer fun for me anymore. It wasn't really helping me. Whereas like in the early days, I'd drink, it'd make me feel happy and buzzing to go out, where it was not even doing that for me anymore. I was like kind of self-medicating. When I'd feel low, that alcohol would give me the buzz to feel happy, but it didn't really have that effect on me anymore, and it was just making me more and more.
Probably, did it?
Yeah, it made me feel worse. It's more and more depressed. Then I would just get on it even more because I thought, might as well, I feel this way, just get back on it again. And towards the end of my career, I was drinking, and I just wasn't enjoying football. I think I just had enough of everything, really. I had enough of life. I had enough of going into training. I had enough of playing the games. I had enough of playing the politics involved in football. I just had enough.
Yeah. It's a unique industry, football is, isn't it? A few people have asked how you find it playing for Barrytown United, and also if you know anything about when the Welsh Premier League season will start.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I think when I initially had that 2 years out of retirement, everyone was like, oh yeah, you're going back into it. But fitness and football fitness is totally different. You can run on the treadmill as much as you want, but when you're having to check and change and do different, it's completely different. So when I gone back in, I really enjoy, the manager there, and I enjoy the players. There's a great group of guys, and I'm excited for this season because I feel that I'm on a level playing field. I know that might sound stupid where I played at a higher level than the rest of the boys there, but I feel that I can be at the same fitness level as them and push on, and I'm excited. I enjoy the management staff there. I enjoy what the club are about. It fits in well with what I'm doing outside of football as well. So that's the reason why I want to keep that competitive edge to do well in Europe and to do well in the Welsh Premier League as well. But the answer to your question, when the league's starting, I don't even know if UEFA or the FAW know when we're starting, so I wouldn't have a clue.
You just mentioned obviously about about playing again, mate. So How do you feel though about being a high profile player in that league? Do you tend to get any special treatment from opposition players?
To be quite honest, it was a bit a weird start because we played 2 games and a couple of games got called off, which is obviously no disrespect. I'm not used to because no games got called off in the Championship unless it was ridiculous snow. And then we went into lockdown, so it was kind of played 2 games, went into lockdown. But I think, but I don't want them to give me extra treatment because we're all competitive. We all want to go and win the match that as well. But I do enjoy being around the guys again with the banter. There's a good group of guys there. The staff are good. So yeah, I'm liking being involved in that competitive side of things again.
Do you see this like a long term thing? Are you wanting to keep your boots on as long as possible? Now you've got like a little bit of a hunger back.
Yeah, I didn't want to do. A lot of people probably from the outside was like, oh, he's just going to go and do a media stunt where he plays for 2 or 3 games and he gets off. But it was never my plan. I wanted to play that season and keep continuing, like what you just said there, keep continuing to play as long as possible. And if I can't be at a level where I'm used to and I'm not reaching the goals that I set myself, then I just hang my boots up because I have standards for myself to reach. And but until as long as I'm fit and I can offer something to the team, then I'll play for as long as possible because I want to try and help the club out and help the manager and my teammates out as much as possible.
Well, I think that's key for me because obviously I try to play on as long as I possibly could. I play over 40s now, and I love it. I love the banter with the lads. I love the competitiveness. I just love the preparation. That it gives me something to look forward to on a weekend. That gives me something to keep fit for and have a hunger for. And just I want to play as long as I can because I remember a few years ago a good friend of mine, Richie Starr, told me that you're a long time retired. So if you're able enough to play and run around, just do it because. I say he had to retire through injury, and just can't run about. So he said if he had the legs and the fitness that I've got, then he would have loved to play. So I've took that advice and I'm just going to try and play as long as I possibly can for at whatever level I can really.
Do you know what though? I'll be honest. When I retired, I did not miss it for 2 years. I don't miss the day-to-day training. I enjoy going into training now because it's 2 or 3 times a week, or was twice a week. Then we play a game, so I enjoy that side of things. But I enjoy it because I can do my other work outside of helping people with mental health and so on, and I do enjoy that side because I can have the best of both worlds really.
Yeah, no, well, I totally agree, and I think part-time football, non-league football, is fantastic for people who've got another passion or another job, or or use it for a different angle. It's. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Being a professional footballer is one of the best experiences and a privileged position to be in. But when your body or when your mental state's not ready for and to be able to carry that on, my body was shot to pieces probably late 20s, and I was struggling to train. I was in a really bad place, and I'd be waking up on a morning before training on a Monday struggling, waking up on a morning on a Saturday morning on a match day struggling and thinking, oh, this is going to be a struggle today, and already I'm in a negative position for a game and. Already I've lost and already I'm going to have a bad game. So, you know what I mean? And when I finished, I knew I shouldn't have played or I'm not giving myself the best opportunity. And that's when it all really, really didn't work for me.
Well, I think when you're at a professional level, though, you never go into, I can't remember the last time I went into a game not having a niggle or anything. I was always had aches and pains, especially towards the latter stage of my career.
Yeah. But it's interesting. It's interesting when you say that, because Bielsa's got this strategy where if you're not 100%, you don't play. So I would have never played. I don't think I would have ever played because I don't think I was ever 100% fit. I was always probably 90, 95%, 80, sometimes 75% because, like you say, you've got a niggle, a dead leg, a twisted ankle. I would never have dared get my ankle strapped up or my knee looked after or have a rub before a game because it just shows weakness.
I don't know if I'm having that. How can he know if they're 100% or not? You cannot. We might have to quiz those players and say if any of them got niggles or not. I would
have to change my answers all the time because I wouldn't be honest. I'd be honest the first week, and then when I didn't play, I'd be thinking, well, hang on a minute, I'm changing my
answer. David, just a couple of questions from the live chat just before we finish off. Then, Gaz wanted to know. You mentioned about being on fire at Doncaster. You'd had a load of assists and goals. Was it difficult to make the decision to leave them because they offered you a new contract, I think, didn't they? And you ultimately went in a different direction. Was that a difficult decision? Obviously, with Dean Saunders being the manager as well.
Well, Dean Saunders, he left to go to Wolves, and he was trying to sign me before then he went there. So he was trying to get me there, and to be quite honest, I would have gone to Wolves from Doncaster. I love my time at Doncaster. All the people there, all the group of lads we had are amazing. We got promoted. It's great times. But in the sense of my career at that time, Wolves are a big club, and I had aspirations to obviously go on and get back in the Welsh squad. And I just feel that leaving Doncaster, because they then got relegated to League One, I needed to make sure that I stayed in the Championship. So Birmingham and a couple of other clubs come calling, and Birmingham are a big club, and it was closer to Cardiff. Again, it was closer for me to see my family. So that's what made my decision, is that they were in the Championship, big club, and it was close to my family. So that's why I decided to move on. So from that point of view, even though I enjoyed my time there, I didn't really feel that it was a really difficult decision.
Talk me through, David, the experience of playing in Brentford 0, Doncaster Rovers 1 to win the title. Talk me through that game.
Do you know what? It was crazy, that game. I couldn't, when we played in the game, it was like nothing in it, and we had a couple of chances, and I thought, here we go, blah, blah, blah. And then we gave a penalty right towards the last minute, a kick of the game or something. And then they hit the crossbar. But before the penalty, I'm thinking, I don't know whose head I'm going to rip off in the change room, because it just cost us getting promoted. So I was already eyeing that up. And then they missed the penalty. Then we broke. And then all of a sudden, it was kind of like, well, Painters broke down the right-hand side, squared into Coppinger, and he just passed in the empty net. And I'm thinking, well, where are all the defenders? Clearly, they were just thinking about celebrating.
Yeah.
And it was quite funny, because we were supposed to be celebrating, and we would have had the trophy parade or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But because Bournemouth, they were drawing or winning their match, would then mean that they won the league. And then Brentford, if they beat us, they would have gone second. And it was all loads of changes, we would have gone into the playoffs. So we went from thinking we lost from being top of the league to then going into the playoffs, to then back winning the league again. It was just a bizarre 30 seconds.
Amazing game. I remember speaking to Copter about it, and just, you know what I mean? Just, I was so proud, obviously, as a friend, and obviously I played for Doncaster briefly on loan myself earlier on in my career, and I was so pleased for the club, because it was just it was the way it happened. Basically, it was just amazing.
Yeah,
really pleased,
because they had a great owner in John Ryan, which he loved the club. He did things the right way, and I think the way it worked out with obviously us getting promoted and Kopp scoring a winner, it couldn't have fitted anything better, really, because he's been the main man there for many years, and he deserved to make sure that he already has his name in history books there, but for him to score the winner on such an occasion, it was perfect.
Totally agree.
100%. David, I've got one more question for you.
He's nervous. He's nervous here, man. Who's the best player Swansea in Cardiff?
It's an easy one compared to Swansea or Cardiff.
His glasses are steaming up there. He's nervous.
No, I was just interested in your short stint in the Indian Super League for ATK. Basically, because it's not a league which we necessarily associate with players going to. It's not one of the sort of most mentioned. However, it is highly viewed in India and the surrounding places. I was just wondering about the decision, the experience, just the all-round thing with it.
Well, I was coming towards the back end of my career, and I played in the Championship for many years, and it's a grind, to be quite honest. Everyone thinks that from the outside it's an easy league or whatever. You're mistaken, because when you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, it's a tough league. And if you see a lot of the Premier League players who've played in the Premier League for so long, who then drop down to the Championship, they then tell you how difficult a league it is. So I just wanted a different change in my career. I was getting to 29, 30. I always wanted to try a new culture, a different experience in a different country, in a different league. So India came knocking, and Teddy Sheringham was the manager, Robbie Keane was in the team. So I thought, you know what, why not go and experience this? Because it was January. It was only about 5 or 6 games left of the season, because they have about 18 games a season there or something. And I thought I'd just go and try something different. If I enjoyed it, then I could potentially keep on for next season. But from where I was mentally, it wasn't a great decision, because my wife at the time was pregnant, and she was supposed to be coming over with me, but then her placenta on the last scan was too low, so she wasn't allowed to fly. So I ended up having to go over there all on my own in a hotel that we lived in, which, in just mad circumstances, we would be in a nice hotel, and 50 meters down the road you have someone washed in the street naked with a bucket, and it was just madness. And it was just the poverty out there. In our stadium we had a billionaire owner, and then outside the boxes this one time when I was injured, people, there was these 2 or 3 homeless people who were sat in the stadium, and they were starving looking at the window, and we were all eating this nice food or whatever. So I took them some food and drinks out there to give to them, and I just thought, this is just crazy life. You've got a billionaire here, we're all in the box eating food, and you've got people there who can't afford anything with no food, and they're just sat outside. So the poverty out there is really, really crazy. A whole different ball game out there, and also it's very difficult because you're only allowed 5 foreign players, which you had to have 6 homegrown players. And no disrespect to the players, but the 6 homegrown players would be worse than players you could probably pull up, your streets when you were playing back in the day football, because the level and the standard was not that great.
So you returned for the birth of your child, I believe, didn't you? Like, you came back to the UK for the birth of your child. Did you have plans to go back out there after that, or was it kind of done when you came back?
I think if things worked out and I enjoyed my time there, and but to be quite honest, if it worked out a lot better, I might have maybe delayed the process of retiring. But I think that just topped it off for me. I was just done with it then. I was ready to go.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, David, thank you ever so much for joining us, mate. I know we went a little bit over time.
Yeah, I've been amazing, mate. Been amazing. I could have listened all day. Really appreciate the honesty as well. Really
it's proved I'm not bored you, eh? It's proved I'm not bored you.
Hey, you're not, mate. Could have kept you on for longer.
No, that's right, mate.
Could have kept you on for longer. I'm not that disrespectful.
When you cracked the joke earlier about the referee, I can't believe you missed my joke. You were chewing my ear off. I thought you were going to be like Pierluigi Cleaner, but you missed my joke.
That wouldn't be allowed. Reece would have jumped back in.
So, guys, check out the audio version of this. Will be out tomorrow morning. There's also numerous shows as usual out on A.C.E Podcast Nation. Got some amazing guests. Yesterday we released a show with 2005 Ashes hero Simon Jones, which was a lot of fun, with my podcast with West Indian cricketer Kieran Powell, which was cool. And we got loads of shows, loads of stuff coming up. And obviously we've got the mental health and sport and mental health shows and all sorts. And I had a few requests for the return of the conspiracy theories show. And might have, just Cardiff nearly scored. Might have some news on that very soon. A special one-off show, because I don't have any time to do any more shows. But we might do a one-off on something. But in the meantime, thank you to Bespoke Financial. Thank you to Darren Ralston. Thank you to Black Diamond Sports. Thank you to everyone who's watched, commented, liked, shared, tuned in. Thank you to Andrew Campbell. Appreciate your time as always, mate.
Loved it. Really appreciate David's time. He's been a super guest, and I hope everything works out with the foundation, mate. Really do. Keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Cheers, David. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Appreciate it, mate. Take it easy, pal. And
bye,
cheers
guys.
to everyone else, and we'll see you soon. Okay. Where's the outro thing? There it is.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so we wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.